Hi friends, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel if you're new here. This video is a little bit different. Normally I don't have actual quality videos. Normally they don't look like this. But I figured I'd break out my fancy camera because I haven't used it and start this new series that's only gonna last for 4 weeks or so, but maybe I'll bring it back next year. Who knows? So you might be asking, what is this series? Good question. So if you haven't seen it already, first video of the series is my PA school decision reactions, which means I'm going into the process and what a process it is. So this video, very excitingly, is going to be about the cost of applying to PA school. So, without further ado, let's get started. If you haven't seen the decision reaction video, putting it wherever it goes. I never know which side it's going to be on, but putting the link up there. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out now because there are spoilers in this for the schools that I applied to and the decisions that I got. Before we even apply, we have to qualify for these schools, which means taking standardized tests. So I took the GRE, and the GRE at the time that I took it, I spent around $377 total on the GRE, which breaks down into $205 to take the test and $30 to send each score. So with the GRE, in case you didn't know, you get 4 free scores. One of my schools actually decided after I had already taken it to then declare that it was optional. So I wasted one of my free scores, but that's okay. That's okay. I still submitted it to them. That's fine. It just got sent when I probably could have used it for a different school. So I had 5 schools require the GRE, and sorry if I'm looking this way, my laptop is here with my fun information on it, my breakdown, so I'm trying to like process what it actually was. But yeah, 4 free scores and then $30 after. It used to be like 27 and then they increased it to 30 when I went to send my scores. So not great, and they're probably going to increase it again because why would they keep it the same when it's obviously a way to get money? I'd recommend, if you're planning on taking the GRE, look at taking it around the new year. They tend to do like a New Year's special, and you can usually get the cost reduced or free for the test. Also look at like fee waivers or stuff like that. So I paid for 2 submissions, so $60 plus the $205, and then we have to add on $112 that I paid for study expenses in the form of GregMat, test books, the online study things that GRE has. All of that adds up. So just for that test, $377. And then 3 of my schools required that I take this judgment exam to qualitatively assess how good I am and like not likely to be a serial killer, I guess, called the CASPA. Not to be confused with the CASPA, because they like to trick you a little bit. But so the CASPA exam, you can only register for it once a year, you can only take it once a year, and your scores can only be sent once a year. You can't repeat from a previous cycle. So you'd have to, if I didn't get in this past cycle, I would have had to do it again this year. Great. I studied for it. I don't think that really helped, but I did do that. But so it is $60 to take it, which includes sending to 1 school. And then I had to send to 2 additional schools for 3 schools total, which is $92. Yay. Slay. just for those 3 schools. And then we go into our actual application. I will say the CASPA application prices may change for this upcoming cycle, so if you're using this video to help you in your planning for the future, just make sure you account for the fact that it's likely different, because they increased it even from when I applied. Like when I was doing my research to versus when I applied, they increase it every year, basically. So CASPA was a little weird. Your first application is a full price, and then every subsequent is a discounted price or something. So your first application is $184, or at least it was for me, and then every subsequent application was $61. And applying to 9 schools means that my CASPA application ended up being $672 just to send the apps. I didn't pay for any transcription entering service. I just did it all myself. I thought it was very easy to do by myself. If you're doubtful, I would recommend it, but it does take a bit of time, so it might be better to just do it yourself. And then after you submit your CASPA, you start getting your supplementals. So more money, of course. So the first supplemental that I did, I actually did it before I submitted CASPA because it was just demographic information. So it was just $30 to send the same stuff that's in my CASPA. No like additional essays or anything. So I did that one, and that was for UF, and that was $30. And then the next supplemental that I did was Yale, and it was $50. And then Duke supplemental was $60. Boston University supplemental was $45. Wake Forest supplemental was $100. And then this last one, which took forever to receive, was Northeastern. They do not have a supplemental application, they just have a fee, and that was $75. So technically, we're done with the application, but we're also not done with the cycle. And then I did forget to mention that I had to submit an official copy of my transcript, and that was $12.25. And that price varies, I think, based on which transcript service your school uses. So another cost to keep into account. Pretty minimal, but you do have to pay it. And I paid it twice because I used my official transcript and had it sent to me in order to do my transcription entry for prior to my senior spring grades. So I did like up to the end of senior fall, so that I would just have them and know that that's how they're going to look on the transcript, because they say make sure you know how it's going to match. Going into interviews, because that also costs money, I am excluding the clothes that I bought for my interviews just because I don't exactly know the prices and I wasn't really paying attention to it. Plus that can vary. You can thrift stuff. Would really recommend it, especially if you have virtual interviews. Just thrift something nice looking if you're able to, if you have that option. If not, go for Shein or whatever. We're going for affordability. We're about to be unemployed for multiple years. Yay! So my first interview was with Tufts, and that was a virtual interview, which meant I had to spend $0 for that one. Thank God. And that's exactly why they do it, why a lot of schools are switching to virtual interviews, and why it's possibly something that you should consider looking into when you're applying to schools. But not every school discloses before the cycle how their interview format is going to be, so take it with a grain of salt. If you can look at last year's, they're probably in the point where they're settling out of the COVID changes, and what they're doing now is likely what they're going to do in the future, barring some like way abnormal change potentially. So my second interview was an in-person interview at MCPHS, which is Massachusetts College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences, and that was an in-person interview, so I had to fly to Boston. It was one day, and my mom did come with me for that, so some costs are replicated in the fact that there were two of us. The cost that I actually paid was, or that we actually paid, was $351, which includes our airfare and our hotel, as well as the Uber that we took from the airport to the hotel back to airport, and the Ubers that I took both to and from the interview. So, a couple of costs included in that little umbrella, but I will disclose that my mom is a savvy shopper and she has points. So that would have been $800 without her points. I think she booked the hotel room just completely with points, so really all I'm accounting for is airfare. And then I believe I flew as her companion, potentially for free, or I'm not including her airfare. I can't remember. But I don't know what your situation is, if you're watching this, if you would bring your parent. I was just really nervous for my first in-person interview, and I wanted my mom there. And she was fortunate enough to be able to take off of work and spend less than 24 hours with me in a completely different city. So that was very helpful for me. And then my next two interviews were both virtual. I interviewed at Wake Forest and Duke, and those are both virtual, so that was another $0. It was really, really helpful having all these virtual interviews. Really saved me a lot of money. I'll go into it afterwards, kind of what I estimated my costs were going to be, because they were way higher. And then, so the total so far we're at is $1,800. It's actually $1,864.25 if we're counting. So that's how much I spent prior to being accepted. I received my acceptance from Tufts off of the wait list the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So I think it was November 22nd or so. So that is basically what happened up until that point, and then here are some little additional details. So I was invited to interview in person at Boston University. They only do interviews in December. So when I got in, I canceled my interview and withdrew my application. But I had booked flights and taken days off of work as well. So I just canceled the flights and it was fine. I paid extra to have them be refundable, just in the case that I decided not to go, or I heard some good news, which I heard good news, so it worked out. But for the flight and hotel, it would have been around $500. So if I hadn't gotten into Tufts, I likely would have continued to go to that interview and spent that money, and then gotten PTO as well for 2 days. And then I had to put down an acceptance deposit, and this may seem like a silly thing to include in this cost breakdown, but it is a cost that you do have to put. So I paid a $1,000 deposit, which I did end up getting a lot of it back, refunded once fees and stuff were taken out. I know I think most schools prorate that towards your first semester's tuition, but it is an important thing to know, is that you might get it back. And then I had to pay for a background check for Tufts, so that was $41.99. So just another additional expense that you might not think of. And then I know people who got into multiple schools who had to put down multiple deposits. I didn't have to do that, but it would have been a very real possibility, because I was just going to put down my deposit wherever I first got in. And then if I heard something different from a school that I maybe liked more, then I would adjust from there. So definitely a big possibility when you're applying to multiple schools with different timelines. So my total expenses, not including that $500 because I didn't actually spend it, got it refunded, it was good. But my total expenses were $2,906.24. Definitely a lot. And I feel like the CASPA fees really do make up a big chunk of that, especially for people who I know applied to like 12 to 15 schools. I believe that the statistical number is one acceptance for every 12 schools applied to or 13 schools applied to or something. And then once you go past that number, your likelihood of getting acceptance doesn't increase as much. That's the breakdown of the costs that I actually spent. I think my estimated was spending $23.42. That was what I thought I was going to spend, and that's before the deposit and the background check and all of that. That kind of sways our details a little bit more. Do just want to recognize that I am extremely fortunate to have been able to pay this. I know application fees really can take a toll on people and can be a main deterrent in kind of getting our diversity up in this field. Applying to multiple universities to increase your chances is expensive, and taking entrance exams and then studying for those entrance exams and using prep courses is also expensive. I chose a cheaper route, but I do know people who have paid like $500 something just in prep alone for the exam, or they have to take it multiple times and then the cost just adds up. So it's definitely something that I think that needs to be worked on, especially having supplemental fees. But unfortunately it seems like that's not going to change anytime soon unless the PAEA wants to do something to standardize that potentially, just because it does make it more difficult when schools are boasting about wanting more diverse applicants from different backgrounds and different socioeconomic statuses, and then they're not acknowledging the disparities and the barriers to apply that currently exist. Speaking of financial barriers, if you are interested, I can link down the information below on applying to get a fee waiver through CASPA. The process is can be anywhere from like a week to like 3 or 4 weeks maybe, dependent on when you're applying. But you do have to use the waiver and submit your first 2 applications within, I believe, 10 days. And then they have financial information on there for what minimum income level or maximum income level you need to be at in order to qualify, which I believe is 200% of the federal poverty line. And it's a good deal. I estimated that it would take away like maybe $600 of my application fees if I had done it. I couldn't because my mom had claimed me as a dependent in the previous tax cycle, and you can't be considered a dependent, and your individual income has to be below 200% of the federal poverty limit. But the waiver does go towards covering your first 2 application fees. So that'd be, I think it's $245. It's the 184 plus 61, so I think that's $245. And then some schools do have that you can use if you're eligible for a fee waiver, or if you're eligible but you don't get one, or if you're eligible and you do get one, you can use that eligibility and apply it towards a supplemental waiver as well. So entirely school dependent, but worth looking into if you qualify and you want to apply to schools. I encourage you to do so. I encourage you to research your schools as well and make sure that you, 1, apply to schools that you qualify for and that you meet their minimum requirements, and 2, that you actually consider yourself going to, or consider yourself living in that area, whatever it may be. For some reason, that's not really a main concern, but why waste your money applying somewhere if you don't actually see yourself going there? So that's basically it for this video. If you have any questions regarding my PA application process, you can feel free to comment them down below. Next week's video will be tackling my dual degree, because I am a PA and PH student at Tufts. Spoilers again for the decision reaction video if you did not see it. But I'm getting a dual degree, so I'm getting 2 masters in 3 years, and I think it'll make me a better provider, but I will go more into it next week. And then the last video wrapping up the series will be a full dive into my stats and my timeline. I will have linked down below my previous 2 videos, both the decision reaction video and my applying to PA school video, as well as my pre-PA playlist, which this video will be a part of. So you can take a little look at that and look at the process and how I got here. And if you want to know more about me, feel free to subscribe, and I would appreciate any nice comments, any likes, and you can follow me on my other social medias. They're also down below. And I'll see you next time. Bye!
I don't wanna let you down. It's the only thing I think about every morning.